84-year-old Muhammad Yunus took oath as the chief advisor to the interim government in Bangladesh, signaling the beginning of a new chapter after 15 years of Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister. The Noble Laureate said that he will uphold, support and protect the Constitution.
Almost half a century after its founding father was deposed in a coup and assassinated by his own army. Today, his daughter and the woman who has led Bangladesh for the past 15 years is forced to flee her motherland. Her palace taken over by her own people. Sheikh Hasina is no longer the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. An interim government led by Noble Laureate Muhammad Yunus has been sworn in, with Yunus promising to work as per the constitution. Hasina's hasty departure marks the tipping point of what began as a student protest against a contentious move to reserve up to 30% of government jobs for families of veterans of the 1971 Liberation War. The protests, which began late last month, escalated dramatically when student activists at Dhaka University, the largest in the country, clashed violently with the police. In the weeks since the protests first turned violent, over 300 people have been confirmed dead officially. Hasina's administration tried her best at damage control, including rolling back the quota order. But the damage has been done. Years of pent-up frustration towards Hasina's rule, the allegations of her stifling all dissent against her by throwing her main rival Khalida Zia and her supporters behind bars, the mounting claims of human rights abuses, and even the reports of widespread rigging of the recent elections erupted in a mass movement that ultimately forced the army to get the Prime Minister to resign without even making a farewell address. But how spontaneous really is this protest? India has always had concerns of Bangladesh becoming a puppet in the larger geopolitical power play in the South Asian region. And there are many who could possibly benefit from Hasina's fall from power. The obvious suspect is China, already seething after Dhaka had rebuffed Beijing and decided to partner New Delhi in the $1 billion Teesta River development project. Earlier this year, China was believed to have played a key role in the India Out protests that took place in the run-up to the elections. Even China's geopolitical rival, the United States, has a vested interest in the region. Since 2022, external actors, predominantly Western countries, have been intervening in Bangladesh's election process, expressing concern over human rights abuses. Sources say that Pakistan's army and ISI wanted to destabilize Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government and restore the opposition BNP to power through protests and street violence. So far, it seems things are going exactly as per the script.
While Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Professor Yunus, India has its security and strategic concerns heightened after Bangladesh plunged into a political crisis. Earlier, I spoke with former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador to Bangladesh, Harsh V Shringla, about it. Take a look. First of all, sir, the fact that now Bangladesh has an interim government, it has a chief advisor in the form of Muhammad Yunus, the Noble Laureate. How should India be viewing this? The fact that there have been good ties between the two countries, should we presume that this will go downhill now, or should we place some sort of faith in the interim government?
It's very early to say, what nature of any interim administration would be in Bangladesh, because right now I think the interim administration hasn't really taken office. You still have a lot of information coming in on who would be its members. There would be, I think, even further metamorphosis as we go along, because there'll be different pulls and pressures, and we will see some measure of changes. So it's hard to say right now as to what the basic approach of that interim administration will be. Professor Yunus has been the one person who's been speaking on the relationship, and I think whatever he said so far is good. I think we should be more than happy to engage with any interim administration that is in charge of that country. Bangladesh is a very close neighbor, a neighbor with whom we share our longest land boundary of over 4,000 kilometers. It occupies a very strategic space, in our neighborhood, right on the Bay of Bengal and abutting, India and its connection to our northeastern part. And from that perspective, I think it's important that we remain engaged with any administration that comes into that country.
Sir, you talked about the core concerns of both the countries, and for India at the moment, our topmost concern is the protection of the minorities in Bangladesh. There are videos emerging of attacks on minorities there. The External Affairs Ministry has spoken about it today, saying that, it's the government's prerogative to protect all citizens in a country. You've got Muhammad Yunus also saying and urging people to not attack minorities as soon as he landed at the Dhaka airport. Do you see the Indian government really stepping up attempts to protect the minorities in Bangladesh now?
No, I think we have to be very firm on some of these areas. I mean, at this point of time, there's still not, conditions that would indicate a return to normalcy. I would say, restoration of peace and stability. Law and order is yet to be restored. And as a result of this, there are obviously, large groups of people who are indulging in activities that are detrimental to, the larger population, and the sort of, breakdown in law and order that we see resulting in looting, arson, even killing of a very large number of policemen, killing of Awami League cadres, attacks against minorities. I think we have to certainly advise any administration in Bangladesh that their first responsibility is to their own citizens, and they have to protect their citizens, especially minorities. I mean, when it comes to minorities, I think we have to be very clear that there can be no compromise. Any attack on minority populations in Bangladesh will impact on us, and this is something that we will not take lightly. So we should not mince our words when it comes to our core priorities. And of course, I think engaging the military, engaging the interim administration, engaging all those who are in positions of authority and who are making decisions in that country have to be, I think, very clearly engaged on those lines.
My last question to you, Ambassador Shringla, you said, interestingly, that India is needed for their existence. Similarly, it goes vice versa as well, that their existence is important to us. And look at the neighborhood around us, whether it's Sri Lanka, it's Nepal, it's the Maldives, it's Bangladesh now. They're all unstable economies with a China influence. How do you see India navigating really its way forward? Clearly, there are tough times ahead for India.
Look, we are today no longer a regional power. We are really an aspiring global power. And as your influence grows globally, our economy grows, our strategic, let's say, outreach is enhanced, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. We are obviously going to come up with more and more challenges as far as our foreign policy is concerned, because we are covering much more ground than we did in the past. And you need to constantly work. I mean, when it comes to your immediate neighborhood, I've always maintained that you need to constantly work to keep it at a level which is satisfactory. In other words, you can't take your eye off the ball, because if you do, then something or the other will go wrong. and it will be always to your detriment. So you need to constantly engage. You need to have a very, very close micromanagement of these relationships. I'm not talking just about Bangladesh. It could be, as you said, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, any of our close neighbors. We need to manage them very carefully. And we need to, I think, have far more oversight and far more, let's say, eyes on the ground than we do now, because of the nature of the fact that we are becoming a much larger player. Our interests are much more extended than what it used to be. And if we are to maintain a certain predominance in the neighborhood, in our own neighborhood, we need to be very, very engaged. We need to devote more resources. We need to, I think, have more specializations on the neighborhood. And I think we need to certainly play the game as it should be played. In other words, work with our neighbors, make sure that they're getting the fullest satisfaction in terms of the relationship that they enjoy with India, and leave as little space as possible for any effort to divide or create gaps in our relationships with our closest neighbors. That will be a constant endeavor of our adversaries, our protagonists, and we need to deny them that space. The moment you give any space, that will be taken advantage of. And I think that is where we need to be very, very careful that we are, when it comes to our neighborhood, we are very much there. We are 100% engaged.